The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, which came out about 7 days ago. How's it doing?
Well, it's doing great. I mean, we came out on about 800 screens, and it's the #1 movie on Rotten Tomatoes right now from audience reaction, and the critics even like it, which is unusual for Christian movies because they kind of have a bias against it, and they're sort of like, you know, I remember one review that I read, I don't remember which place it was, they said, this is such a great movie, this is good about it, this is good about it, this is good about it, and then the last sentence was like, yeah, but it's not really good enough to be called a rom-com. And it's sort of like, you just said all these good things about it, but they felt like they had to...
Do they whisper in your ear, we really like it, but we can't give it 4 stars or 5 stars or whatever the highest rating is because it's a Christian movie, because it's rated PG?
I guess they would tell me that, but I don't know any critics personally. You know, they're sort of like Nielsen families. I don't know where they are.
Who are they?
I've never met one.
Do you feel better being able to make these kinds of movies? I feel like right now there's a need for it.
Definitely.
You know, I like, the funny thing about what we call a faith-based movie today, it used to be just a Hollywood movie. Like, if you think about It's a Wonderful Life, if that movie came out today, that would be called a faith-based movie.
Wow.
Yeah,
you know?
you're instead of just a movie, a great Christmas
because it's got a moral and it's got a religious aspect, and you know, so movies in the 70s really started to move away from traditional values, but those kinds of stories are timeless, and I think that Hollywood could learn from, you know, you should have all kinds of movies.
I agree.
The Cutting Edge isn't a faith-based movie, but it's a movie you could watch with your grandmother or your 9-year-old daughter or whatever, and it wouldn't feel embarrassed.
Right.
You know, so.
When did you make the conscious decision, okay, I'm going to not do the typical Hollywood thing, and I'm going to do more of the faith-based things? Because that could be a career changer for you.
Well, in
a bad way. Some of them say they're shunned in Hollywood if they come out and they have their conservative beliefs or they talk about their faith.
Well, I don't really, I don't lead with it. You know, this is the first one I've done, so I'm doing another movie after this, a studio movie. I got a movie coming out about a transgender singer, nightclub singer, you know, so I mean, I'm an actor. I go where the good scripts are. I'm not trying to make some kind of a statement that this is who I am.
Speaking of that, what do you think about these award shows now where these actors are getting up? Instead of saying, you know, thank you so much for seeing my movie, thank you to my parents for raising me, they're getting out there and they're talking about our president. I used to love watching award shows, the Oscars. I don't watch them anymore because they don't do anything for me, and I don't want to hear what these actors have to say.
About politics.
Yes, about politics.
Yeah.
Well, I've had the great honor of visiting with our troops in many countries overseas and battle zones and everything.
And
I got to
as a part of a USO tour?
USO tours, and also with small organizations and just individually.
Oh, terrific.
And I got to show this movie, The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, at Fort Hood last week. So I've been around plenty of people who you could describe as brave. So I have to chuckle a little bit when you're on we watch an award show and somebody makes a statement, a political statement or something, or a statement about a social issue, and everybody lauds them as brave. It's like, it's not brave.
I think you're absolutely
tell a room full of people who agree with you what they already believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Although you recall Matthew McConaughey, and he was speaking at, I don't know if it was the Emmy Awards one year, but the Academy Awards, I think, and he talked about giving credit to his success to God, to his mother and God. And remember, we made a big deal out of that, and we lauded him for that, for having, I guess, unfortunately, what you would have to call in Hollywood the courage to speak that, because it perhaps is a minority point of view.
I think he got a pass because the movie he was talking about was a movie related to AIDS, so sort of like, I think they sort of felt like that was probably, he said that by accident.
Sort of the counterbalance.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about his faith or his beliefs or anything like that, but I think it's great that people should, you know, speak up for what they believe in. Like these protests that are going on right now, I don't really understand it that much because, you know, for the last several years, everybody's been telling us, you know, gender is not a defining characteristic, that sometimes it's an accident of nature. And then we have this election, and the candidate with boy parts wins, and the candidate with girl parts loses, and all these women are out in the streets with giant, you know, Virginiuses on their head, and I just, when did it change? Like, I thought we were having this other narrative where we were getting away from gender, we're getting, you know.
And you're right, absolutely.
So I didn't understand what the protest was.
When it fits their narrative, then they will march.
I was just trying to understand, like, I mean, I'm sure President Trump's going to give people plenty of things to protest about eventually, but I just thought,
for so long, women were saying,
we're going to protest.
You know, we can't say those words because they're derogatory, you know, about our parts. I mean, it just, to me, it doesn't ring true. It doesn't make sense to me. No. People are just protesting to protest sometimes.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty garish, too. I mean, a lot of the imagery from those parades.
I agree.
I mean, it's, you know,
and you got little kids there.
So what's it like being an actor in Chicago? I'm going to change the subject.
You're right.
Okay. It's tremendous. I mean, I think, you know, I'm a New Yorker, and I love the Broadway theater, but I feel like the actual legitimate theater is better in Chicago.
Why is that?
Well, I think part of it's real estate. It's impossible to run a small theater anywhere in the taxi zone of Manhattan.
Yeah, because it's just too expensive.
Too expensive. You'd have to charge like Broadway theaters charge to do experimental plays or different kinds of, you know, more challenging plays. And in Chicago, they have these resident theaters, Steppenwolf and Goodman, and all these other theaters that are just tremendous.
Well,
And
they have comedy clubs, too, because
yeah,
so many
Second
really
City.
well-known comedians come out of Chicago as well.
Yeah, and there's an audience for it. Like, I think Broadway, there's certainly an audience for Broadway, obviously. There's so many new shows all the time. But a lot of it's tourists, and it's a certain, it's rich people and tourists, really. But in Chicago, ordinary people go to the theater. So it creates a different
That's so
energy.
interesting. That must
I
make it a
love
lot
the
of fun.
theater.
Yeah.
I think more people need to experience it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
You're
happy
so
night,
thoughtful.
you.
What a thoughtful person you are. Thank you for coming on the couch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
love
nice
having
to see
you.
Thank
Have a
you
great
very
week.
much.
Happy
Congratulations,
Friday.
movie.
Thank you.